Okay, everyone, we're going to talk today about the five mechanisms or causes of evolution. Now, these things do not all occur individually, they occur usually with one another, right? So, usually, if we have some natural selection occurring, there's natural selection occurs because of maybe a mutation or a genetic drift or gene flow. Usually, we have a combination of any of these five things occurring. It can be that just one of these things occur, but most of the time, you're going to have more than one of these things occurring. We've already talked about natural selection or artificial selection, kind of actually both of them. And then we also talked a little bit about mutation, so mistaken copying DNA. But what we haven't talked about is what genetic drift is, gene flow, and we really haven't talked about non-random mating either. Okay. So the first one, natural selection, natural artificial selection. So natural selection is basically we talk about that survival of the fittest kind of thing, right? So if there are organisms in an environment, organisms within a population in the environment that have uh, genes or have characteristics that give them a better ability to survive, so survive from predators, or just survive their environment better, then they they're more likely to pass on their genes. Okay, so something like brown mice being eaten by the hawks if they're on a black, if they're in the black lava fields. We saw that in that example with the black and brown mice, right? So that's natural selection. Okay, we also kind of artificial selection. So artificial selection is when humans kind of get involved here. So actually, wild mustard was artificially selected to make all these different vegetables that we eat today. So cauliflower, broccoli, cabbage, kale, whatever that is, all of those were actually artificially selected or evolved from wild mustard seed. Okay, we could also say that wolves, we artificially selected wolves and gave them the traits we wanted to create dogs. So today's modern dogs. Okay, so natural and artificial selection, something we already talked about. Mutation, again, something we already talked about as well. So mistakes that are made while copying DNA. So when those mistakes are made, they can be made for any number of reasons. You know, um, we call those mutations. Mutations can be either favorable or unfavorable. So if they're unfavorable, usually they're not passed on to the next generation. If they're favorable, usually they are passed on, and usually that's in combination with natural selection, right? So if we have favorable genes or favorable mutations, then we can get a natural selection where those allow those organisms to survive. Okay. There's different types of chromosomal mutations. So there's deletions. So we can remove one of um, the amino acids in the chain here, or in the gene, or actually it would actually be nucleic acid possibly. I'm not exactly sure what they're referring to here, but uh, just when they're copying the DNA could either be part of it can be deleted. We can have it doubled by accident. We can have it switched places, so inverted, inversion, or translocated, so located from taken from one gene to another. Okay, so those are all different types of mutations that we have here. Um, the next one is genetic drift. There's another video that you're going to watch, and they talk about the changing or the shrinking of a population. That's basically what's going on here. Genetic drift is just the shrinking of a population, and it can happen uh, really one of two major ways. So the a genetic bottleneck. So a genetic bottleneck is when the original population is greatly decreased. So this bottleneck event, it can be like a natural disaster, like earthquake, flood, or even like humans can go in there and kill all one type of the organism. Um, and then the small amount of survivors, the ones that do survive, create a new population with a new gene pool. With a new gene pool. Okay. We can also have the founder effect. So the founder effect, where is a small group in a population splinters off and creates a new population. So maybe a few of these organisms, they are transported to another island, and now over time their genetic makeup changes. The other video you're going to watch really explains really well how what evolution actually is, and how it's just really the changing in the gene pool. That's really all it is, the changing in the gene pool. All right. And both of these things change that. They change the percentages of genes in the gene pool. Okay. The next one is gene flow. So gene flow is individuals from one population migrate to another. So this one, genetic drift, is either a shrinking of a population. So you're not mixing populations. And then this one here is gene flow is mixing of two populations. Okay, basically mixing of two populations. So you have a population in one area, and then one of them goes into the other area and then mixes. These two populations could combine as well. That would also be considered gene flow. Also, if some left the gene pool, this leftover would also have a change or in genetic information, and would basically evolve as well. Okay, so either gene flow can flow into a population or out of a population. Both of those things will change the variability of the alleles in a population. Okay, and then the last one is non-random mating. So non-random mating happens when males and females pick their mates based on individual characteristics, and it's not just at random. Okay, so non-random mating. So random mating, just any female that comes along, the male will mate with. Same thing goes with the females, right? It'd be totally random, totally, no rhyme or reason to it. Non-random mating though is when some genes are favored, right? So some birds like certain feather colors, and then in humans, physical characteristics or intelligence. Humans have non-random mating, so that will always lead to, or not always, but that may lead to evolution or change. All right, and those are the 5 mechanisms for evolution. Again, they don't all have to occur for evolution to occur. One can happen and evolution can occur, but usually it's a combination. Usually it's a combination of 2 or more of these that will cause evolution to occur over time. Okay, you do have some work to do with that, and I'll see you all later.